What's up, everybody? It's your boys, Aaron and Adam. We're back at it again. Aaron, it's always good to see you.
Always great, man. Hey, do you have anything crazy in that book? Because it's wide open. I don't know if they're looking.
This is, you know that I always keep a book of like secrets. This isn't the book, though. You know the blue one that I carry around. That's like That's like my deep, dark secrets. That
Well, we got to get, remind me.
Forget I said anything.
You got to distract him. I got to get the book, Durango.
No. Hey, we're super excited to be back with you again and doing another episode. We've got a great guest in here with us today that we're excited to talk about. Probably the most diverse backgrounds of guests that we'll have on the program. Brad Klopfenstein. Brad, it is good to have you in the room with us.
Adam, Aaron, thanks for having me in. I love the studio.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We're having fun with it, and we're super appreciative that you're here.
Yeah.
That's good. The table's really cool.
Yeah, see, the table is pretty cool. That was my contribution.
Yeah.
The wall's okay.
Yep. The viewers can't see, but the sound cloud above us was actually custom made, and we need to have it repaired by the designer. But it actually mirrors the image of the table above us. So.
Wow. Yeah. Somebody put some thought into this.
They did. Yeah.
And
he's handsome too.
It's in reverse.
Yeah, it is. You don't got to tell everybody everything.
Oh, well, look, I mean, if you're patting yourself, if you notice, look, that side is right here.
I don't know how you got sound deadening material in the shape of the Playboy logo, but that's impressive.
It is not that. Well, hey, Brad, you've got a really cool background, and we were super excited to bring you in and just talk a little bit about, obviously, our show. We talk a lot about entrepreneurship and business and work hard and play hard. And that's a lot of what you do actually for a job as the president of the Lawrence Chamber of Commerce here in Indiana.
I do. I love it. So I've been president of the Greater Lawrence Chamber of Commerce for just over 3 years. I love working with businesses, promoting businesses, and promoting Lawrence.
Yeah.
So is that the main part of your job is going through with the businesses, talking to people in the area about what's going on, and then promoting the businesses locally?
So it's kind of three-pronged. So one is getting to know the businesses, just knowing what they do, trying to network people the best I can, and do a lot of business to business. It was funny. A year or so ago, I found there was one company that distributes all the raw materials and ingredients that go into making vitamins. And like a month later, I found another business that was a mile away from them that actually makes vitamins. And they didn't know that either one of them was there.
Holy smokes.
Funny.
And so you bring those people together. We do a lot of events. So every month we'll do a coffee with colleagues. And that's where people just show up for 45 minutes. You get coffee and donuts. You network, and then you go off to work. We did a state of the city last week. Or 2 weeks ago with the mayor of Lawrence. I did a legislative luncheon last Friday where we had 4 state senators and a state representative that was there just talking about what's going on at the State House. So some of it's lobbying, a lot of it is networking, and the third component is just promoting Lawrence and letting people know all the great things that go on there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. We'll jump all over the place here, but I guess kind of, from a pitch perspective, since we do have a lot of business owners that listen, albeit from around the country, not just here in Indiana or specific to Lawrence, but what would you say is the value of a business being involved with their local chamber?
A lot of it was what I mentioned, just knowing who's around you, obviously buying local. What's the old adage that a dollar spent locally circulates throughout the community 7 times before it leaves? So the more money that you can keep in your community, the better off the people who live and work there are going to be. It's, we all live probably within 8 or 10 miles of where we work, thereabouts. And the more of those dollars that you can keep at home, the more dollars are going to be spent at your business later on.
I don't think I've heard that adage before, that I didn't know. That, that money stayed around and circulated 7 times. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, that's really neat.
Yeah,
that's why it's important to stick with your local businesses.
It is. And so, and then if you want to be somewhat altruistic, the more you can cut down on transportation costs, the more that's going to save you and the environment money. It saves you money, and it's good for the environment. So, there's a big green movement, especially with like produce and farmers markets, where they try. There's some farmers markets that say everything that's here has to have been produced within like 100 miles, and that is just to keep, to cut down on greenhouse emissions that go into transportation. So, that all kind of goes together.
Yeah, it's really pretty interesting.
Yeah.
There in Lawrence, you live in one of the coolest communities ever, I think. Brad and I's wives work together, and so we get to hang out from time to time. And you guys live in one of the coolest places ever, I think.
So in the heart of Lawrence is the old Fort Benjamin Harrison. It was an Army base. So it was commissioned in 1903 and then decommissioned, I believe, in 1994. So where we live is one of the old officers' quarters. So there's an area called Lawton Loop, and it's 28 acres, and that's where they would do the drills for all the enlisted men. And then all the officers, I think there's like 30 homes that ring that parade grounds, and that's where the officers lived. So once they decommissioned the fort, 1,700 acres of it went to become Fort Harrison State Park.
Okay.
Some of the other areas, Lawrence is, my elevator pitch for Lawrence is, where else can you go where you have a historic downtown that's walking distance to a 1,700 acre state park, and there's still room to grow?
Yeah.
So there's the historic area where we've got a bunch of eateries, and there's a big tech campus that's there that's 400 yards from my house.
Yeah.
We got Arts for Lawrence, which is a theater. There's live productions. We went to see a production of The Great Gatsby last Saturday night. Heartland Film Festival, Heartland Film, just located their headquarters there.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So, and then we've still got some open lots there where if somebody wants to come in, we can do anything from industrial to mixed use. We've got a mixed use development that's going in that I think is 170 luxury apartments, and then there's going to be like 30,000 square feet of retail that's going to have a nice restaurant.
Yeah, a lot going on in that area.
So, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. The place that they live, so these parade grounds, it's basically just like a big open field, and there's a loop that goes around it. And then I think from what you guys were telling us is there was, officer quarters all around it, but based on your rank, you had a larger place. So that there was like basically a small, a medium, a large, and then like the grande, I believe, right? And
right. So the grande 15,000 square foot home belonged to the general.
Okay.
And then there was 3 other singles that all went 10,000 square feet plus. But yeah, way back when, you knew the rank of the person based on the orientation of the porch. If the porch was off to the side, that meant you were one rank. If the porch was in the front, that was a different rank.
Oh, wow.
Ours is a small, so we're in a quad, but that was if you were a bachelor and an officer, you lived in the one that I lived in. So
yeah, and it's a gorgeous home, like all brick, and I think it's still the original wood floors.
It is original wood floors,
and even some of the windows, like it's the old school windows where like you can kind of still see the
wavy glass.
The wavy glass. That's really cool.
It's crazy. I didn't know how long wood floors could actually last, but our floors in our house are wood, and we were looking at having them redone, not taken out, but like
sanded down,
and finished. The guy came over and he like pulled the vent up so you could see in and see everything. He's like, "Oh, these have at least 250 years left on them." And I was like, "Wait, what?"
That's awesome.
Let me tell you the key to a good floor in a floor that's going to last, and that is a good roof. And if you need roof, please call Indy Roof Company. Oh, sorry.
He can't help himself.
Gotta get that commercial in. That's good. Now, Aaron Adams been there. The coolest thing about this place where we live, and this was kind of a condition before we moved in. I had a cool bar at my old house, and so Sheila, my wife, was looking around, and we looked at a lot of homes, but we were looking for a place that could house the bar.
Yeah.
So where we live, the old attic that is in this building, the previous owners had converted into a homeschooling room for their kids. Perfect speakeasy bar. It is
so
pretty awesome.
You've converted it all now?
Yeah, so we had a bar custom built for that, and it's got scads of TVs and lots of neon signs on the wall.
Now I need pictures.
You
man.
go
you
up there.
Pictures?
No, you got to go there sometime. And you go up there, and it's just he's got some of the coolest memorabilia. And like, how many old beer cans do you have? Do you know?
Oh, thousands.
Like old.
I'll go, but I need instant gratification. We need pictures, and plus the people I'm sure want to see as well.
Aaron has its own Facebook page.
Are you serious?
Klopp Speakeasy Lounge.
There we go. I didn't know that.
I'll be looking it up. See? Klopp Speakeasy Lounge. Got it.
That's fantastic. Which, so you are a guy that, you love that kind of thing and everything. And then you love all things Indiana history. And so those two things converged for you recently even. And you went up and made an interesting purchase and then just had a launch.
Yes. So I sold beer back in the 90s. It was, I call it my first career out of college. I spent a year as a restaurant and bar manager, but I sold beer for 4 years. So I've always loved beer, loved selling beer. And as Adam said, I have a distinct appreciation for history of Indiana. So a couple years ago, I acquired a trademark for an old Indiana beer.
Yeah, strategically he wore. Make sure you get
move
the microphone away so we get a good shot of it on the camera.
What should I wear today for the podcast?
Yeah, exactly.
So I acquired the trademark to Alpsprout, and it was brewed up in Fort Wayne. They started brewing it in '57, and then it was out of business by 1978. It was brewed by Old Crown, which had been the Scent Liver Brewery dating back to 1862.
Okay.
So anyhow, Sheila and I started talking to breweries really around the country. So talked to a lot of microbrewers here in Indiana, talked to a few regional brewers, talked to a national brewer, and we were trying to find somebody who would be a good fit to brew this beer. And then finally this past fall, we hooked up with a brewery called Two Toms out of Fort Wayne. And I'd talked to them a year or so ago, and at the time it wasn't a good fit for them. They weren't ready to do it. We got back in touch, started talking more, and Tom of Two Toms was like,
which Tom?
Turns out there's only one Tom.
Huh.
So he's still full time with, I think, Waste Management. And when he said he learned to open a brewery, his wife's like, "Where are you going to find time to open a brewery?" He goes, "The other Tom will take care of the brewery." So that's where the Two Toms comes from.
Gotcha.
So anyhow, so Two Toms. They started brewing the first batch right before New Year's.
Now, out of curiosity, is Two Toms, are they brewing other people's drinks, which obviously they will for you, but has that been their MO, or are they trying to do their own as well, or a combination of both?
So he opened in 2017, I believe, up in Fort Wayne as just a brew pub.
Okay.
So, and a microbrewer. So he's been doing his own thing since the beginning. He's never had a year-round style, and he's never brewed for somebody else.
Right. So you're coming in with a consistent order brand. Okay.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
So he wanted something year-round, given that the brand was from Fort Wayne. He had an interest in that. He, too, has an interest in brewing history. So he is licensing the Alpsprout trademark from me.
Okay.
And has put it out there. So he'd also, this past summer, opened a tasting room up in Fishers. So he's got a Fort Wayne presence and then a North Side Indianapolis presence. So we rolled this out in mid-February, and it was such a successful launch. We sold out in 8 days.
Oh, wow.
We had to wait 3 weeks until the next batch was ready.
So out of curiosity, did you just got the brand, or do you have like the original recipe?
So we don't have the original recipe. Throughout this process over the last couple of years, I've become good friends with several members of the Scent Liver family who are descendants of the people who had the brewery.
Okay.
The recipe is lost to history, so that's gone.
Okay.
So Tom came up with a recipe that is a very good tribute to what they were brewing back in the 50s with just a little bit of craftiness to it.
Okay.
It's a solid beer. I should have brought samples today. I don't know where
he
my
remembered the
manners are.
shirt. He forgot the beer.
Yeah.
I was doing chamber stuff up until I got here today, so I was distracted.
So how does that work then? So obviously you had to seek this family out, right? Like, hey, well, did you buy this from them, or how did all that come about?
So actually, I discovered it because it was an abandoned trademark.
Okay.
It started off, I was just looking at the U.S. Trademark and Patent Office, trying to figure out who owned a bunch of these old brands. And most of them, I was able to figure out the owner. On this one particular one, nobody renewed it back in 1994. And it had just been out there, which, the brand went out of business once. There's not a whole lot of call for this.
Right.
But, started talking to some people who kind of vaguely remembered it. But it had a good history, and just brewing was changing back in the 60s. And the brand never got a fair shake, I didn't think. So enough time had passed.
Did you know the brand from back then? Like, was it a? No, okay.
My dad remembers some old commercials from it.
Okay.
I don't remember seeing it. Pretty much anybody that has a beer can collection actually has an Alpsbrow can in it.
Okay.
So it was out there, but it's been a fun process. I mean, Sheila and I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this, but we've got beer that's,
And you sold out already. That's
we
fantastic.
sold out the first time, but it's funny just because of my connections in the beer business, and I'm still president of the Indiana Licensed Beverage Association, which is a trade association for bar owners. So I've still got connections in the industry. So that was one of the reasons we sold out so fast. But like down here, Tried and True Ale House has it. There's a couple places in Franklin that have it. We're in Total Wine and More now. So
that's a fast freaking launch, man. That's awesome.
It was.
It pays to have connections.
It does pay to have connections. You guys know this as well as anybody.
Yeah.
It's not always what you know, it's who you know.
I try to preach that on a regular basis because there are plenty of people that have got ahead from what they know, and there are also plenty of people that have got ahead from who they know.
Yeah.
So it's a little combo of both, I think, for the magic dust there.
It is. I always tell people, don't burn those bridges with people just because, especially around Central Indiana, we are a big city, but it's got kind of a small town feel, and people always seem to circle back into your life. And if they have a good impression of you and a good experience with you in the past, sometime you're going to need something from them, and they're going to be willing to help you. And in this case, it's worked out fabulously.
That's awesome.
That's really cool. Brad's one of those guys that, you've heard of Kevin Bacon's 6 degrees of separation. Mm-hmm. He's one of those guys that is, if you know Brad, then there's really only about 3 or 4 degrees of separation because Brad knows everyone.
Funny, there's a friend of mine, Paul, that doesn't matter what his name is. But anyhow, he considers himself a friend collector. He's like, I don't have a lot of real close friends. He goes, but I've got a real broad list of friends from all over the place. I don't know that I'm a friend collector, but I do know a lot of people. And some of it is. So in addition to all this, I also do WIBC radio from time to time. I ran for lieutenant governor a dozen years ago.
Don't talk about that yet. That's
okay, we'll hold it back.
Yeah.
So there's
I can't unhear it.
Yeah, we're moving on. We'll come back.
You know how that works.
Yeah. We can edit that out.
His running mate is someone you'll know.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Well, hold on. We're not. I thought we're
not. That's it. So
we're talking beer.
So he's just like looking over to the side. No, that's really cool. That's congratulations on a successful launch.
Thank you.
That's
so
really
it's
something.
exciting. I'm not sure that I'll ever get rich on this, but how many people can say they own a beer?
Yeah. Not me.
You know, there's plenty of things that people do that doesn't get rich, but it's about the desire and the enjoyment that you get out of it.
Yeah. So it's funny. Last night, Sheila and I were talking, and we were just kind of going over it. And I was like, all right, so far this year, I think we put about $2,000 into this beer. We made about $500 back out. She goes, I've had $1,500 worth of fun so far.
Yeah.
That's a great way of looking at it. It's
and
like
$500 worth of beer.
Yeah, exactly. And the beer's pretty damn good, too, so that doesn't hurt.
Oh, that's fun. So,
So if you need beer on Sunday, I guess you can get beer on Sunday here now. Never mind.
Oh yeah, if you needed a guy.
I forgot that.
But if you need locally brewed and a good local business to support
with a historic brand,
yeah, if you're into that kind of thing, so you've got that now. Again, all things history. Indiana is what you know as well, and this kind of gets into some of the play harder. But you and your wife, I know, spend a lot of time in one of 2 vehicles, both of which are pretty unique and traveling the state and going and take a look at things. So let's talk a little bit about the play harder side of Brad and what you guys do for fun.
Sure. So Adam mentioned the vehicles. I've, like a lot of people, just from the time I was little, fascinated by cool cars. And so my primary vehicle is a big yellow Ram pickup truck that's parked out in front of your building. And then I've got a 93 Mustang 5.0 convertible.
The Fox bodies.
Fox body. Last year, the Fox body. This was a special edition. And so we'll sometimes tool around in that when the weather's nice. But another Facebook page we have is called Adventures with Brad. Okay. And this was born out of COVID. And largely, My wife doesn't like to have people to tell her what to do. And when the governor said everybody needed to hunker down for 3 weeks, and then the mayor said there's going to be a curfew and I'm going to arrest you, that did not sit well in my home.
Yeah.
And she was like, nobody's going to tell me I have to stay home. And I'm like, all right, they didn't tell us we have to stay home. They're just telling us to not be around people. Indiana is a big state with lots of wide open spaces. So on the weekends, we'd just get in one of the cars and we would just drive. We wouldn't necessarily even have a direction in mind. And we would just go explore. And the jankier the road that we saw, we're like, ooh, that one looks jankier than the one we're on. Let's take it and see where it goes. And you can find a lot of cool stuff out there.
Yeah, what's 2 or 3 of the coolest things that you've found in these travels here in the state?
There's an area called Medora, Indiana, which is kind of southwestern Lawrence County, so southwest of Bedford.
Okay.
There was an old brick plant that was just there on the side of the road.
That's not far from the property you're buying.
It's not?
No. Interestingly enough.
Norman, Indiana?
Yeah, so
where's Norman?
So Norman
southwest
is
of Bloomington. It touches Bloomington.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just a little further south from there. Mm-hmm. So down Valonia, I think, is the nearest town of size to this area.
Okay.
But we saw it. We like to find a lot of old bridges, and I've gotten skillful enough that I can look at the map on the dash, and if you see there's a river running through, and you can see where 2 roads come together, but then there's nothing that crosses the river there, odds are there's a decommissioned bridge. That's where those roads come together. So if I see something like that, I'm like, bear with me. We're going to drive down this road and see what's down there. Every once in a while, the bridge has been removed, but I'd say more than half the time, the bridge is still there.
Did you guys ever go out to like the Brazil, Greencastle, Mansfield area with all the covered bridges and check all those out?
We haven't specifically gone out to that area. We went out to south of like Attica.
Okay.
And we followed the Wabash River around, and there's a lot of cool stuff out in that area. It's a little bit more rural.
Okay.
But a lot of cool iron truss bridges that still cross the Wabash, and so we checked that out. So
that's cool.
There's a website called bridgehunter.com, and it's got a great list of every bridge ever, anywhere, and it'll give you a little map of where it is. It'll tell you if it's still standing. Sometimes they've been gone. It'll tell you if you drive across it or what it is. And so if you know where you're going to go, and I think they've got it broken down by county, so you can just pull up a county. It'll tell you about what the intersection is, and you can just go to it.
Whether it's haunted or not.
I've never seen that, but
that's fun. So 2 or 3 of the coolest things that you've seen when you've been traveling. You said you were down near Bedford.
Down Bedford, so Medora, so the brick plant that's down there in Medora.
Is it still like operational, or is it just kind of abandoned?
It's been abandoned since the early '90s.
Okay.
And it's falling apart. So I know that there's a movement afoot to try to preserve it, because these things look like giant brick igloos.
Yeah.
And they're just right there off to the side of the road. And eventually they are all going to cave in. But it's rather unique. So there's a lot of good eateries around Indiana. I mean, it's certainly like the Schnitzelbank down in Jasper is always kind of a destination for us if we want to go down there.
The other thing you need to know about Brad, and now's a good time to bring it up, Aaron, is he's clearly German and enjoys all things German. Their wedding was pretty cool. You had I don't know what they're called, but with the suits and all that kind of stuff, and the beer steins, and it was interesting.
Aaron, we had an opening act for my wedding.
Okay.
So it was a band called the Beer Barrel Boys.
Okay.
So
You've heard of them, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had seen the Beer Barrel Boys out someplace a few months prior to our wedding, and and I inquired on how much they would be to play at 6:00 on a Saturday night, and the price was right. I'm like, I want you guys to be the opening act.
Did you wear lederhosen?
I did not.
That's what it's called.
Lederhosen, yeah. So they wore lederhosen. But they came out with the alpine hat and the accordion, and
they sounded really cool. It was
they
fun.
were. I want to hire them again just for a party.
Yeah,
that would be cool. There was one that used to go. What's the German restaurant downtown that has the
Oh, the rest killer.
Yeah, the rest killer. I saw the not quite German, but the Polka Boys there. Have you seen them? Like,
yes,
they're awesome. Next thing I know, there's a dude playing like Snoop Dogg on the accordion.
Can we find a clip of that, Durango?
That'd be your intro music.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, and then so you also collect beer steins and all of that as well, right?
Yeah. So Sheila likes old beer coolers, so we're up to. In fact, we found one last weekend that was in great shape from Fairs Brewery out of Louisville.
Yeah.
So we've got like a half dozen of these cool old beer coolers that are in our hallway. Just as decorations. I'm not allowed to use any of them to hold beer, but they look neat.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be pretty cool, man. I had a friend that collected steins back in the day, and they had some pretty cool ones that actually came from his grandfather in World War II and stuff. It was
Wow.
pretty neat.
What's the deal? Like, what's the history on this? Like, why are they made that way, steins? I'm not a.
So
I don't know a lot
the
about that.
lid was to keep bugs out of your beer.
Oh, that's got a must.
It is. So, so you just had a little flip top on there. So, when you're at your Oktoberfest celebration, you know how it is here in September. You got bees everywhere. Put that lid down, keeps the bees out of your beer.
If my wife watches this episode, she'll never drink another drink without a lid now.
She's like, can we get some beer steins?
She hates bugs. She's like, I'm going to come home one day and it's just going to be all of our old cups are thrown out and they're just all steins with lids now.
A little secret, Goodwill or Goodwill.com, you can find beer steins all day long for like $10.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So were they originally metal or like I see a lot of porcelain ones now and everything? But
So most of the steins were some sort of ceramic or glass, and then the lid typically was metal.
Oh, okay.
Just 'cause they're
So it
easier
is
to
kind of a
forge.
2 I got you.
Yeah. So and I think the fancier the better. Everybody tried to one up their neighbor by having a fancier stein, so that's why they're a little over the top at times.
Interesting.
Like, look at your pathetic stein.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that looks just like a mug.
All right, so getting back to you had again one of the most diverse backgrounds back several years ago. You were on a ticket. We don't normally talk politics on the show, but we can do it a little bit here. You were on a ticket to run for lieutenant governor.
I was
with someone of well mention.
Yes. So
Do you want to take a guess before he tells you? What year was this again?
2012.
2012. You remember? Were you voting back in 2012?
I was of age to vote. I don't remember if I did or who it was for. So
Tie dye. We can drop a hint.
Rupert.
You got it.
I was Rupert's running mate.
All right.
So
Isn't that fascinating? I didn't
is pretty
know until your wedding, by the way.
I honestly don't even remember him running.
Yeah, nobody else did either, and that's why we finished a distant third.
Oh my gosh.
So it was fast.
Which he was Survivor, right? A winner of
So
the
he was on-
show Survivor.
So he'd been on Survivor, I think at that time, like 3 different times, and he had won $1 million as the fan favorite in like Survivor All Stars or something. I'm not exactly sure what that was. So he told I was aware of him. I was not a big Survivor viewer,
Right.
but I learned a lot. So he said that he won that $1 million. The government considers that like lottery winnings. They don't consider that earned income. So he said of that $1 million, he really only got about $450. The rest of it had to go out in taxes, which then makes me dislike the government.
How does that make you feel, Aaron?
I hate taxes.
I hate tax. Yes,
Hate
exactly.
taxes.
I doubt that he's gotten $550 worth of value out of the government for that money that he spent.
Yeah.
So, but in any case, so he was going to run for governor. I had been involved with the Libertarian Party for a number of years, and we had talked a little bit, and he'd mentioned what I consider being his running mate. And at the time, I was like, man, I don't know that this will happen. However, it's a long shot, but it's a decent long shot just because if he caught fire,
Yeah.
I'm like, sure enough.
Who knows? So you did run on a libertarian ticket?
Yep. So, which at that time I had done some lobbying and I was kind of the legit political guy. I had consulted on some campaigns and run some campaigns for some Republicans and Libertarians at the time.
Yeah.
So while he was the celebrity, I was the one that people had known. The media kind of knew me. And so I was the one that kind of appeased,
Stabilized
it and appeased some of the party insiders on it. So it was fun. I got to do a debate with my two opponents out at the state fair.
Yeah.
I kicked their ass.
Obviously.
So, but like running with Rupert was fascinating because when we would travel around the state, things I would have never thought of, if we had to stop for gas, we'd have to build in like an extra half an hour because we would as soon as word got out that Rupert was in whatever little town we were in, they called or texted everybody else in town and they would just flood this gas station and it'd be half an hour him signing autographs.
Yeah.
And
that was like pretty hot on the trails of him winning that money and kind of getting that stardom
it
too.
Was like
so
2 or 3 years afterwards. So I mean, he was very much a known entity.
So I never watched Survivor or that season, but I know him just because of those type of things. And then he used to come to my wife's family's auction, and he used to come up there a lot. My wife's
So you know the guy-ish. There's like full circle here in our conversation.
Well, I mean, you can do the Kevin Bacon thing, but
Yeah.
like I don't think I've actually ever
know
met
a
him.
guy that knows
But
a
like
guy.
my wife's first Facebook picture or second Facebook picture, I think, is like her and Rupert.
See? That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Now, you mentioned how many, the votes, and at the time we'd set the record for the best third place finish. I think that's been eclipsed since then. In fact, I know it has. But the sad part of that was that dude. I'm sure I watched him sign 100,000 autographs. We only got 110,000 votes, so he signed a lot of autographs for people who forgot that he was running for governor or didn't vote for him or
those are the only votes he got plus 10,000.
That's also possible.
Yeah.
See, I like to think I brought 10,000 to the table.
It's really interesting. I have to wonder. So he was probably, certainly from a state perspective, like celebrities run for office all the time now, but that kind of wasn't common back then.
Especially in Indiana.
In Indiana.
Yeah, Indiana we have a limited number of national celebrities to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And, so you count, Mellencamp?
Nope.
Well, yeah, I'm not even sure who else we would have.
Michael Jackson. Isn't he Gary?
He's from Gary.
Yeah, he was. But yeah, the ones that actually live here, there's not that many. So
Tony Stewart, if you're listening, I'd like to see him punch some political people in the face because I think he would do that.
From what I've heard about his attitude, he might punch political people.
yes, okay. I'd be down with that.
Yeah, we want to see that, Tony.
Yeah.
Need to have him on. He'll be next week's guest.
We're launching his campaign for him without him in the room. That's super interesting. But yeah, that. So I have to wonder then, because again, that really didn't happen back then. But now you wonder, if he were to win Survivor now and then that were to happen, I'd have to imagine that it would pull in more votes in today's climate, because I feel like it's a little bit more acceptable to vote. Number one, third party. Number two, based on celebrity status.
Right. So I still think that we would have a hard time getting people to take any celebrity seriously just because they didn't come through the political ranks. Trump was able to do it, but Trump has always kind of skirted politics and has chimed in on it and just, was known. Whereas Rupert was known more just for entertainment purposes and trying to do that pivot and not only say, it's not just that I'm this pirate guy that you've seen on television. I have a lot to offer and have some thoughts on the issues of the day, and just people would cover us, but more as an oddity as opposed to a serious campaign. And that was one of my big disappointments, that we could just never get that traction.
Do you think that it was tough because, he was always in the tie-dye shirt and everything. Like he never really churched it up, if you will, with cleanly shaven and all that kind of stuff.
Like he trimmed his beard down to a third of the length from before, and a lot of times he would have a tie-dye, but it would either be only his tie or maybe the kerchief in his jacket. But still, yeah.
Oh, but he actually was putting jackets on.
Yeah, I mean he was wearing suits, and I mean he did the serious political thing, and he did it well. And he had a lot of good ideas, but just, for whatever reason, people wanted to be around him. But
Well, I mean, has there ever been a libertarian in Indiana? It's
Not on
Brad
a
would
high,
be the guy
not
to
on
know.
a high level area.
Yeah.
Now I had a libertarian judge that performed our wedding ceremony.
Well, yeah,
So
no,
so
I'm
yeah, so
sorry.
we've
I
got
mean-
some city council, some local judges, but yeah, nothing on a state level or in the state
yeah.
house.
So that's already an uphill battle, even if he was doing
It
great
is.
and you were doing great.
Right.
you
So
know.
that's why I say it was kind of a lottery ticket, but on the outside chance, sure. I'm
Yeah,
in.
no, absolutely.
It wasn't reputation
Somebody's
damaging.
got to get it first, right?
Right. Exactly. And that was as good a shot as anybody.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Yeah, interesting stuff.
I mean, either way, you ended up with some pretty cool stories about it.
Oh
So,
yeah. Oh, everything I've done in my life largely is just to get good stories. So I mean, like,
You're like Jay Peterman from Seinfeld. Just
We should have an Alps and talk about it.
only I would have brought a cooler. Yeah, no. Okay, I got to come back next time, and I'm supposed to bring the beer. But like little things. So like I mentioned, I lobbied mostly on alcohol issues.
Yeah.
So like some of the things that you enjoy today that I'm responsible for used to be you could not buy alcohol on election day until the polls closed. I was one that helped get rid of that law. Used to be
Nice.
you could not buy alcohol on Christmas Day. That was me. The whole daylight saving time when we first started doing that was going to be that the bars were going to have to effectively close an hour earlier.
Yeah.
Got that to go away. Got pull tabs legalized.
You guys have a lot to thank him for.
wait. You're responsible for pull tabs.
Pull tabs.
That's I've
Well,
Actually-
obviously me and a coalition, but I was a key person that got that ball rolling. And yeah,
I was about to give you props, but I lose too much money on pull tabs, so you lose.
That's
the
why.
point on- yeah,
That's
you
why I
lose the
looked at
point.
you. There's this place not too far from our house that, like a little family restaurant or whatever. And I kept on one night seeing this lady go up, and I'm like, "What the heck is that?" And I can't remember who I was with, but they're like, "It's pull tabs." And I'm like, "What is it?" They were like, "It's kind of like lottery tickets." And then so I'm like, "Oh, okay." And like they kind of gave me the background on it, and I was like, "Man, I'll buy a couple bucks or whatever." And obviously I lost that couple bucks, but I've been actually at that restaurant with you when you have spent hundreds, and I don't know about hundreds, but a lot more than a couple bucks.
Seems extreme, but yeah. I mean, you got to drop a 20 at a time. You can't buy one pull tab ticket. You know, you got to get a 20. So here's the deal. I was at the Slippery Noodle downtown, right? Mm-hmm. First time I ever did pull tabs. I think this was a long time ago, probably when I don't know when pull tabs become legal.
oh, let's see, that would have been about 08 for bars. Yeah, so
So it was probably around 08. Probably when it was started up, and I got a bunch, and I'm sitting here opening them, and I'm like, loser. My friend's helping me open them. We get all done. And he's like, yeah. I was like, oh, well, that's stupid. I'll never do that again. He's like, just kidding. I got a $500 one. And I was like, oh, my. They're mine. He was just opening it for me. I was like, oh, my gosh. So we won. And
And you've been sucked, and you've
it's
never won
been
again.
downhill ever since. They hooked me in. They're like, gotcha, bitch.
I don't play often, but when I do, I will typically go up to the machine and see which one has a very nice last sale that goes with it, and then I'll look and see how many tickets are left.
Is that what you like? You can see how many have been bought because somebody else was telling me like, oh, you got like I'm gonna do this, but we got to talk to the bartender and see because they know when the last hit was and blah blah blah. And I'm like, this is weird.
I mean, to an extent, like the people got to turn them into them.
Yeah. So the reason it was not legal is because this is a form of gambling.
It's gambling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And the government doesn't like people muscling in on their monopoly.
Yeah. What about the 50-50 raffles at the high school football game?
Those are legal. Those are legal as long as they've got the proper permits. But
They got a permit for that?
yeah, so that
That's
goes
so
through the
crazy.
state gaming commission. So
Same with the Catholic churches.
yeah, so as long as you're
So weird.
as long as you're a not-for-profit, you put in your application with the state gaming commission, and initially I think it's a $50 application fee, and then once you're done with the raffle, you tell them how much money you made, and how much money you made on your last fundraiser determines your application fee for your next fundraiser.
You know what this sounds like to me? I've been watching the show Tulsa King.
Yeah.
And, the whole premise is he's a mobster that moves from New York to Oklahoma and he shakes these businesses down essentially. That's what this sounds like.
Government
It's
graft?
a government
Oh,
shakedown?
heck yeah, that's
Like,
exactly what it is. It is.
And I'm over exaggerating my naiveness at the moment because of the taxes and everything. But I mean, seriously, like when you look at that plainly, like that's crazy. So I'm saying this because I've got a friend he's a high school band director, and once a year he does a big event where they do some kind of raffle or whatever, and he has to do this. He has to get his gaming commission license to like auction off a pair of freaking socks that cost $2, but he'll sell them for $20 just to get money or whatever the case is.
You have to turn in the name of all the people who are going to be selling the tickets, and the name, their address, I think even their social security number, driver's license number, or something. But yeah, that's a money grab.
Gotta get a cut of the action, just like the guy from Tulsa King. It's crazy. Aaron hates paying taxes. I don't know if we've ever talked about that. I mean, we all do.
They're the worst. They're the worst. They're like,
so
hey,
bad.
let me get I'm glad you were busy and you did this shit all week. Let me get half that.
Yeah. We'll offer you protection.
Yeah. Well,
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
but if you don't pay, you'll need the protection.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It's a racket. I was looking at it, and they originally. It's crazy to think where they came on taxes because the whole Boston Tea Party.
I was going to say let's get some Tea Party stuff going.
Yeah. Well, what they did is they
not politically, just let's get tea parties in the river.
The people voted it in because they told the people that they were only going to tax the rich, and so the people then voted in taxing, and then they rolled it out for everybody and just continued to.
Yeah.
Yes. So. The implication was only the rich drink tea.
Yeah.
Turns out, nope, everybody did.
Yep.
And we've been paying taxes on green tea ever since.
I hate tea too.
See, I hate like food and beverage taxes.
Yeah.
That is no different than if there was an asphalt shingle tax.
Yeah.
You're taxing one industry for no apparent reason
because
they can.
Because.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. We should probably move on from this. I'm going to start flipping tables over here.
Don't plant the seed in anybody's mind about a shingle tax, by the way, because we'll have to close our doors. Aaron's about to go nuts. Hey, all right, take a minute. Let's take a deep breath, Aaron. Maybe grab a drink of water. Oh, man, that's funny stuff. So what's next for you? What do you got on the horizon? Where's your focus going to be?
My focus is still in Lawrence and running the Lawrence Chamber. Telling everybody why I love Lawrence. In fact, there's a hashtag why I love Lawrence.
Hashtag. Okay, that was cool. Is that what all the kids are doing now?
Yeah. Hashtag.
Okay, I feel Durango. Can you check to see if that's no cap? That's legit. Okay. All right.
See, Durango's got my back. Ask your boys; they'll tell you.
Exactly.
So
Man.
I've got that. With the successful launch of Alpsbrow, I've actually acquired 3 more historic Indiana beer trademarks.
Oh, really?
You don't even know.
I don't even know. This is hot off the press.
Hey, welcome to my world.
All right, Aaron, you take over the questions now because I don't even know what to ask on that.
So I now have Indianapolis Brewing Company, Nickel Plate Beer, and Circle
Are these
City
brands
Beer.
that previously existed that you now? Okay.
So these are full brands, not just lines.
Correct. So they are brands that have not been produced in anywhere from 20 to 60 years. So
Is this all of them right there?
That is the whole universe of the new ones there.
Okay.
With Alpsbrow on the front. Sorry, I only brought one card for that.
I love that Indianapolis Brewing Company beer logo. That is so cool.
Yeah, so there's 2 versions. There's one that's got the, basically it's the lady from atop Monument Circle.
Oh yeah.
So
Just kidding.
That hurts.
So so she's up on top, and then there's another circular one. So yes, sometime in the future, I will be talking to Tom of 2 Toms to see what his capacity is to do other beers, and if he's not interested, then
You're gonna have to he's gonna have to change his name to 3 Toms with
might.
all this action going on.
I'm going to make Tom sell beer whether he wants to sell beer or not.
Tom, you've been warned.
If you build it, they will come.
That's exactly right. I think Tom has been a little overwhelmed by this because I told him, like, hey, I used to sell beer and I've got all these connections and I know a bunch of the people. And I think that he was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
do.
sure,
Everybody
guy.
says they know lots of people and can get me in lots of places. And then, lo and behold, first run made it.
Has he been
8
pretty
days.
happy with the launch then too? With
It's hard to say. I have not talked. He's been very happy. I haven't talked to him a lot. I think he's been busy trying to produce more beer.
Oh, that's good.
So yeah.
So you're brewing that in Fort Wayne, and then you said that they brought it down
Right.
to the
So-
Fisher's location.
Yeah. So he is distributing out of his location in Fort Wayne and out of his location in Fishers, and then they'll put it out in retailers from there. So So we've got a salesman that actually lives in Greenwood. So effectively, it's going anywhere within 30 miles of Greenwood, just because that's where he delivers. So as it continues to grow, we will.
So you just stack it on his truck and he sells it there with the product.
So we'll pre-sell it the week ahead, and he's got a bunch of invoices, and then he'll pick up that beer and then distribute it throughout the week. So he's actually doing selling and distribution himself. So
okay.
So yeah, so it's it's not a bad.
That's
setup.
cool. It's down in Greenwood because that's where we're close to. So
Right.
and we're definitely within the 30-mile range.
Yeah.
Or since it's your guy, I mean, he could just put us right on the delivery route.
Pretty much, yes.
Since you didn't bring us any today.
That's fun. Well, that's really cool. What do you think? Last couple questions here as we kind of wrap things up. What you get a chance to sit down with some really interesting business owners. Obviously, even some politically affiliated people, some media affiliated people. What's one of the things that you see right now that where a lot of business owners are focused in the state? We got. And I'm not trying to be political or anything, but there's a lot of things that are going on right now, elections coming up and all that kind of stuff. Where do you see a lot of focus going right now?
A lot of it, and you guys probably see this as much as anybody, it's still a problem getting people. Is not as bad as it was maybe 9 months ago, but getting people to work and show up to work who have the skills to be able to do the job.
While did they go?
Yeah, because I was wondering the same thing, because it's I get while the government was giving out money, but that stopped, right? A while ago.
About a year ago,
I'm
right?
telling you, this Feet Finder thing is off the hook.
So some of it is, I think that there were a lot of people that were working 10 hours a week.
Yeah.
That, so they're not full-time in the economy, but if you have 100 people working 10 hours a week, that's 1,000 hours worth of labor. And if there were students or semi-retired or retired or working a second job, I think a lot of those people are still out of the economy right now.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of the kind of almost gig workers that aren't there.
Or people got really good at their side hustle.
I think some of that. I also think that, there's a lot of even national and multinational companies that they got real good at the work from home game. And so now, look at the organization that I came from. They didn't really have a strong presence in the state of Indiana. They do now, one, because of the acquisition, but two, because they literally will hire people for their sales team anywhere in the country. Doesn't matter where you live. It can be in a rural location. We'll ship you a computer and a telephone, and you can do your phone sales job from literally anywhere.
That is another big shift. I mean, Indiana has had a big push for rural broadband.
Yeah.
And more and more employees figure out where it is they want to live first, and then figured out what it is they're going to do second. It used to be the other way around. It used to be you moved to wherever your job was.
Yeah.
And now the more connected that, smaller Indiana communities can be, there's some people that want to get out of the city. And, and as long as, like you say, as long as they can stay connected, they can do a sales job from anywhere.
Yeah, and I think quality of life is becoming a more prevalent thing too, and everybody's saying I'm just going to do whatever I do. I want to have a good quality of life.
Yeah,
that's a big shift.
Yeah,
in the job market
shift
right now. My grandfather and my dad, and I say that kind of air quotes, but also literally at the same time. You think of those generations, and it was just you get your good job, you lock in, and you stay there for 30, 40 years, and then now it's there is no longevity almost in employment.
Very few places offer pensions anymore,
right.
And your incentives to stay are less. It used to be that those benefits were kind of what kept you there, but your employer would also take care of you and take care of your family. And now, whether it be gig economies, whatever, people find that they can probably do better on their own. Other issues with business. Supply chain is going to continue to be an issue, and it's really, China is just now opening back up, and so much of our stuff was coming from China. I think that there is a movement afoot. I know, with computer chips, that was a big problem because almost everything was coming out of Taiwan, and now I think that there's a dozen computer chip companies that are plants that are being built here in the United States. I think 2 of those are up around West Lafayette.
Oh, really?
In Indiana, or one's in Lafayette, maybe another one's out towards Bloomington. But I think there's a realization that we cannot rely on the rest of the world, especially someplace like China that may or may not be our ally. And
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because, again, with the circles that you run into and, the state reps and everything and mayors and things like that are going overseas and, they used to go over and petition those companies to do more business here and all that kind of stuff. Is that kind of thing still going on, or are state leaders trying to look at, hey, let's actually do what's best for Indiana in Indiana?
So they're still doing the trade missions, and a lot of those going overseas were trying to encourage Asian companies to have a presence here in Indiana. And, and I think that they did a fairly good job. Obviously, the Subaru plant was a result of one of those trade missions, and there's some other tangible results that come out of that. I think ultimately the United States needs to get back to making the things that we need to sustain our lifestyle, whether that be energy, computer chips. So we need to have at least some manufacturing here so that we're not so reliant. And just, Asia's always been a little volatile, and I don't know that that's necessarily going to change. I do always say it's probably bad policy to want to bomb your customer. So that's that's probably the one thing that keeps China from getting in our knickers too much. But, China seems to be wanting to play with Russia a lot more, and Russia's not our friend. And, I also think that we probably need to be making sure that our digital infrastructure is protected. And, they talk about TikTok, and they've made government employees take TikTok off their phone. It's just because China does own TikTok, and it'd be pretty easy to put a Trojan horse in TikTok, and whenever China wanted to, flip it on and either disable your phone, or all your data is going over to China. And I think those are things that we probably need to pay attention to.
Yeah. That's interesting stuff.
I've kind of heard that, and they talked about that back when the last president was in office, and they were talking about getting rid of TikTok and that whole thing. And I never really thought about it. I got TikTok on my phone, and I make funny TikToks with my kids, but you start thinking about that stuff. You're like, technically, I haven't read the privacy rights of TikTok. I don't read any of that stuff. I'm just like,
all of it weirds me out. All of it weirds me. I was having a conversation with somebody on the phone yesterday, and trying to think of what it was about. I think it was on insurance stuff, where we're doing our personal home and auto insurance or whatever. And then now, all the ads on YouTube are insurance related, and that just it bugs me.
They listen.
It bugs me.
It happens, and I think probably for your own well-being, you're better off not thinking about that.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that I don't have a whole lot of state secrets that I'm keeping, but some people do. And if they get a hold of the right person and the right phone,
Can you imagine how complicated that has to be? If you're an elected official, the security you've got to go through, or just somebody with a top secret clearance kind of thing, that'd be a lot of stress.
Well, we have a lot of insurance agents that are members of the chamber, and I've talked to them, and cybersecurity coverage is one of their big issues right now, just because all it takes is one ransomware claim, and that can take down an entire insurance company if it's big enough, because some of these ransoms are $10-15 million.
It's crazy.
And you almost have to pay it, otherwise you have no business to go back to. So, those are always things to kind of keep an eye on. I hate to be a downer. We've had a great show up until now, but you
bring it down, Brad.
Yeah, you ask what people are talking about, and those are some of the things that are out there to at least be aware of from a business standpoint, just because, it could cripple you. Think about everything that you do. All your invoicing is digital. All your banking is digital. All your work orders that you're sending your guys out to, it's almost all digital, and none of that's handwritten anymore.
Yeah.
So
you're giving me a complex. You got to go.
Night, everybody.
No, it's interesting stuff. That you got to take into consideration when you are running a business are those types of threats and protecting yourself and protecting your team. We always, whenever we're talking about our business, we always talk about it in terms of protecting our team members. It's one thing for Aaron and I, but it's another thing that we feel obligated to protect the folks that work here.
Right. Insurance is legalized gambling. It's what is your risk tolerance on something like this? And, how much is it worth to you to know what the peace of mind is, but you can't be too insured because otherwise you're never going to have any profit. So
Yeah, exactly. And then you get into the big corporations then that self-insure and whatnot. So that's another, that's got to be a big choice to go, hey, you know what? We're so large. These are massive companies, obviously, but we're so large that we don't want to pay those premiums. So we're going to self-insure. Like, hopefully this factory of $150 million doesn't burn down to the ground.
So when are you guys going to start manufacturing your own shingles? The Indy Roof line of
I would
roofing
say,
products.
I would personally say never.
We got manufacturers that do it so well already, and that seems like a lot of work. They've put the thought, the effort, and the business into play. So we'll just keep buying those and keep installing the roofs.
So the materials you buy, where do those come from?
We work with two suppliers. We work with Owens Corning and then a company, which is obviously I think most people know Owens Corning, but the lesser known one is called Malarkey, which is a funny name. And they even joke about it. It's the guy's last name. And he said, with a name like Malarkey, we got to make a good product, right? But they actually do have a really good product. They're impact resistant polymer modified, like a rubber inside. They you couldn't tell the two. If I held them up, you wouldn't be able to tell which one was rubber in the middle and which one was normal oxidized asphalt. But the rubber ones have a little more impact resistance and better rating. Owens Corning has those as well, but they're the top tier of Owens Corning line, whereas these are just every one that they make is. So those are the two primary ones that we use, and we've had great success with use both of those partners.
Yeah, it was. I think I don't know. I'd just gotten connected and plugged in here, so a couple of years ago, and this was literally like the week after we had lunch or dinner with Brad and Sheila, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I told them, "Oh, I got this great new job and all that kind of stuff." And he's like, "Man, I just signed a contract last week to have the whole complex at Fort Bend redone." He's the president of the HOA. I was like, "What can we do to get around that contract you just signed, Brad?"
Adam, I will tell you that contract is this close to going to court. So,
oh, really?
Oh, that's still
Did
going
they ever
on?
do it?
That's been
Slowly. We are on year 3 of this to do 15 buildings, 30 units, and it's not gone well.
well, you know what?
Let us know how we can help.
Yeah. If you need anything from us, just give us a shout.
We will talk when we're done with this.
Now we appreciate you coming on though, and just it's I always love getting to talk about stuff going on around the country and all that kind of stuff, but especially in the state. I love the state of Indiana. I think it's a great state, and to hear some of your travels and some of the things that you're doing and resurrecting with some of the brands and everything is just it's a cool story.
Yeah, okay, yeah, beer for sure next time.
I think we're going to need one if we're
be
talking about penis pumps. Honestly,
it might not even be my beer.
It might not even be my.
They might not have any. Might be sold out.
If we're sold out again, we're going to be drinking Coors Banquets, and we're just going to be happy.
Awesome.
That's funny.
Well, I appreciate you coming in, man. It was fun
Thanks,
to get.
guys.
Like I know that you know Adam. We've met a couple times, but it was good to get to know more of your backstory and learn about all this stuff. So thank you for coming in.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
I dig the studio, and anytime.
Thanks so much. And thank you for joining in. As always, please make sure that you like and subscribe, ring the bell, share with your friends, tell your Nana, help her watch it on her computer, and help us grow as we continue to grow. Yeah, hashtag help us grow.
You got to do the thing.
Hash this way or this way? Oh, this way. Both
However you
facing
get
out. All right, there we go. Awesome. Till we meet again.